Welcome to this Friday afternoon stream. Fridays are the days where I wake up and I go, there's going to be a lot of news today. And I just brace myself and wait for it to happen because it just is like clockwork. I made note of this about a month ago that Fridays seem to be a big day in the world of GLP-1 medications. And today did not disappoint. So I wanted to address a couple of news stories that are going on, kind of give you my 10 cents on what is going on here. We are going to talk about what is going on with Mochi and their pharmacy that my understanding is that they own Akita Pharmacy. Y'all can correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but I believe Akita Pharmacy is owned by Mochi Health or whatever their parent company is. That has some breaking news with some implications for folks. We're going to go over that news today. And then also I keep getting pings that that there was a stay granted in the OFA versus FDA trial. Of course, after looking into that closely, I will give you my take on what's going on. But before we do that, could you hit the like button, hit the thumbs up button? If you're watching on YouTube, that helps us get out to other people. Make sure that you are hitting the subscribe button if you're not always subscribed. If news is important to you, that's something that you need to make sure that you do is hit follow along. If you're watching over on TikTok could be going away in a matter of a couple weeks. Make sure you just jump over and watch us on YouTube now instead of watching us here. Just get used to it and find us there and hit subscribe. So what is going on? Well, the first thing that is going on is we have the Akita Pharmacy issue. So Akita Pharmacy, as I mentioned before, is Mochi's pharmacy. And I'm just going to read this update sort of verbatim here so that, and actually I'm going to throw it up if you're watching on YouTube, I'm going to throw it up on the screen so that we all are looking off of the same thing. I don't want to say anything that isn't factually correct here. And if I get into theorizing, I will definitely let you know. But this is what's going on here. So this and this first came to me. It came to me in about 10 different places over a matter of about 15 minutes. But first came to me from Cam in Kansas. If you're following her, she follows this stuff pretty closely as well. But this was from March 13th. Dated yesterday, and this is out of Olympia, Washington. So not to be confused with Olympia Compound Pharmacy, which is in Florida. This is out of Olympia, Washington, the city. The Pharmacy Quality Assurance Commission has issued a limited stop service to Akita Pharmacy LLC pending further legal action. The pharmacy located at 12825 Northeast 126th Place in Kirkland, Washington, 98034-7721. And then it gives their pharmacy number. The notice of immediate limited stop service alleges that Akita, which compounds glucagon-like peptide 1s, GLP-1s, such as semaglutide and tirzepatide, failed to develop and implement a commission-approved plan of correction to correct deficient practices or conditions. The deficient practices include allowing untrained and unqualified staff to perform sterile compounding, not properly supervising staff, and not adhering to sterile compounding procedures designed to ensure product integrity and patient safety. Akita cannot compound and cannot dispense, deliver, or distribute compounded products in Washington state until the limited stop service is resolved. They have 28 days to respond to the limited stop service by requesting a hearing. The commission must conduct a follow-up inspection within 5 business days unless Akita requests additional time. Legal documents are available by clicking the link to Provider Credential Search on the agency homepage, doh.wa.gov, or by calling 306-236-4700. Anyone who believes a healthcare facility or healthcare provider has violated licensing laws is encouraged to call. And then they give another number. I'm not going to give another number out. I kind of got goaded into that first one to report their complaint. Complaints can also be submitted via email to, and then it gives an email address. I'll let you all look this up here. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see it on the screen there. The mission of the Washington State Pharmacy Quality Assurance Commission is to promote public health and safety by establishing the highest standards in the practice of pharmacy and to advocate for patient safety through effective communication with the public, profession, Department of Health, governor, and the legislature. Our website is your source for a healthy dose of information. Get updates by following us on social media, and that's the end of the press release. And this press release, again, from the Washington State Department of Health. The Pharmacy Quality Assurance Commission issues limited stop service on license of pharmacy. This is Akita Pharmacy. I believe that this pharmacy is the pharmacy that is owned by Mochi. And so let's just get into that. Let's unpack that a little bit. So this is a significant developing in the compound GLP-1 space, right? Akita Pharmacy is being hit with a limited stop service by Washington State Pharmacy Quality Assurance Commission and suggests major regulatory scrutiny on compounded semaglutide and tirzepatide. Now, I just want to put a caveat. I believe that Akita is owned by Mochi. I could be incorrect. I could be saying that inaccurately. I do know for a fact is that they rely on Akita for a lot of the delivering of their compounded versions of medications, right? And to this point, we haven't heard anything from Mochi. I haven't heard anything from Mochi reps. I haven't heard anything from Mochi themselves. I am simply just going on what is on this website from the Washington State Department of Health and what I know about Mochi. So basically, Akita, this pharmacy, which is associated with Mochi, is completely barred from compounding or distributing GLP-1 products in Washington State until further notice. The pharmacy has 28 days to request a hearing, and regulators must inspect within 5 business days unless additional time is granted. And if this becomes a trend, it could further limit patient access who are relying on compounds from Akita Pharmacy. Now, this was dated yesterday, right? So theoretically, anybody who was using and this isn't just Mochi, anybody who was using Akita Pharmacy to fill their scripts would have likely known about this yesterday, not today. So that is an interesting point to discuss as well. It's obviously a developing story worth tracking, especially for anyone relying on compounds. I know that many people are using Mochi, and we look forward to hearing sort of what Mochi has to say on all this. But for right now, we don't have any update other than to say that Akita has been basically temporarily held back from issuing compounded tirzepatide and semaglutide products. So that's the news there. We eagerly await to hear from other pharmacies if they have been sort of the target. And so I want to get into the perspective of the news here, right? I want to put this in the broader picture of what's going on. So one of the things that we know has happened over the last couple of weeks, obviously the OFA did not get that preliminary injunction granted. So the 503B compounds, which are going to be the mass produced in basically like what amounts to a factory, right? To use layman's terms, basically factories that can just mass produce this stuff. 503Bs, they're overseen by the FDA. Now, 503A pharmacies are the ones that basically have said, we're going to continue to compound because we're going to use it. We're going to use the 503A regulations that exist in the Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act to make custom doses and custom formulations. Now, Mochi Health is one of those who has been very vocal about continuing to offer custom dosages and that there would be no interruption in service to their patients. Now, the interesting thing about 503A stuff is 503As are not overseen by the FDA. They're overseen by their state pharmacy boards. And the state pharmacy boards would then have the ability to go in and inspect. And that's where this came from with Akita Pharmacy. Now, here is what I find interesting, right? And this is where I take my news hat off and I go into the guy who's sort of plugged into this industry mode. What we've seen over the last 3 weeks is a aggressive campaign against compounds from both Eli Lilly and Novo Nordisk. Eli Lilly obviously rolled theirs out at the Oscars. Novo Nordisk sort of rolled out theirs in response to the ad by Hims and Hers that was played during the Super Bowl. I think the reality is that the timing of this all happening, if you've ever worked in any industry that is subject to any sort of inspection, state inspection, or government inspection, it is always very, very interesting to see how the timing happens, right? And so I think the timing is interesting. It does call into question to me whether pressure has been put on state pharmacy boards by, I won't theorize who, but if pressure has been put on them to get in and inspect more. Inspecting is important, right? And we talk about this with 503As. The challenge with 503A pharmacies is because they're governed by their state boards of pharmacy, there's really no overarching regulators, right? With 503B pharmacies, you have the Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act, which is overseen by the FDA. You don't have that with 503A pharmacies. So the interesting thing to me in this whole big pharmaceutical attack on compounds is that they've gone after, in my opinion, this is just my opinion, this is not the opinion of anybody but Dave Knapp, man on the Manjaro. My opinion is what they've gone after is the safest option first. The 503Bs have FDA oversight via the Food and Drug Administration. They have oversight by the FDA via the Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act, and the subsequent compliance of the current goods and manufacturing process, right? So the CGMP is overseen by the FDA. You don't get that with 503As. The nice thing with 503Bs is that they have to then source their active pharmaceutical ingredient from FDA approved sources. And so the second you remove 503Bs, which is 503Bs are the ones that are getting shut down by the shortage ending, you move everybody to 503As. And for the people who can't find the 503As, then they're going to be looking towards the far reaches of the internet for the research grade versions. And so really what this is doing, campaigns that are put out by Eli Lilly and Novo Nordisk respectively, and the campaigns are all about safety and patient safety. What they're actually doing is they're actually pushing patients to progressively less safe options. And I think that it's just a teachable moment in whether this is really a campaign against compounds. And you can make that argument. You could make the argument that compounds should not be allowed. You can make an argument that they should be allowed. But that's what this argument is about. Let's not do this under the auspices of patient safety when the first thing that gets shut down are the 503B pharmacies, which are arguably the safest option on the spectrum of non-branded medications. And that is my opinion. That is just my opinion. It's nobody else's. I'm sharing this simply as Dave Knapp, man on the Manjaro. But that is my opinion. So this is interesting news. And here's what I'm also going to say. And I don't want to defend, what's going on here. It sounds like what was found during this inspection was stuff you don't want happening in a pharmacy that your medicine's coming from. Okay. You don't want unqualified staff performing sterile compounding. You don't want that staff to then not be supervised properly. And then furthermore, you don't want to see sterile compounding procedures not being followed. Those are all things that if you're taking a compounded if you're injecting anything into your body, you want to make sure that stuff is buttoned up, right? But what I also know is that when an inspection is done, there's usually something that is found or noted. Now, what is basically alleged here, and we sort of saw the same thing with a 503B that was inspected by the FDA back in December, going back all the way, I believe, to the fall of last year. There was another pharmacy called ProRx, which is actually a 503B, which kind of went through something similar. right? I'm seeing a lot of people in the comments, by the way, that are kind of comparing this to Usha. I kind of reject that out of hand. Usha Pharmacy had no sterile compound pharmacy license. They had no business compounding sterile drugs. That is not what's happening here with Akita Pharmacy. That is not what is being alleged by the state pharmacy board here. Akita Pharmacy has a sterile compound pharmacy license. They were inspected, found to be in violation, and now what is being alleged here is that they have not performed the proper remedies. And again, we saw this with ProRx, 503B inspected by the FDA back in December. We saw this information drop. It's available at onthepen.com. You can just search ProRx in the search bar and kind of find out. It's very similar to that. There was an inspection. There were some corrective actions that were laid out as being necessary by the FDA in that specific instance. And then when the FDA found them to not follow them, there was continued follow-up, right? We're seeing sort of like the same thing happening here with this pharmacy, right? So this is a super, super interesting story. We are very eager to hear from Mochi as to what came out yesterday, right? So I know that there are probably a lot of advocates out there who are going, what sort of guidance are we supposed to be giving? And if you're in this business and you're in the business of dispensing injectable medications and something like this happens, you need to be ready to back up and support the people who are out there, pushing your product. And so this is I'm eager to hear what they have to say, and I'm sure that those who have advocated for Mochi and those who are using their medications are waiting with bated breath to hear what's going on. I know that there are many, many people who have used Mochi Health that have been very satisfied with the product that they've received, with the service that they've received. And so this is not this is not intended to be a bashing on any specific company or anything. This is just simply reporting the news and trying to put it in context of the greater war on compounds that was coming. Like, we knew that there was going to be an onslaught against these 503As, especially the ones that were saying, hey, the 503Bs are over. No big deal. We'll continue to offer. There will be no interruption in service. I always thought that was pretty brazen, given the power of the powers that be. Again, Cam from Texas gave you a little shout out, or Cam from Kansas gave you a little shout out earlier for pitching this my way. So that's the update, right? And if you're curious what the update was, you need to go over to my YouTube channel and go to the live video and just rewind it, right? So this is breaking news today on Akita Pharmacy. Again, this is a pharmacy associated with Mochi Health. I believe they rely on Akita to fulfill a lot of their prescriptions, which leaves a lot of people who are probably waiting on 6 months. I think they do the longer prescriptions there too. It's probably people that have spent a lot of money waiting to hear what's going on here. So it'll be interesting to see how they respond. And as soon as they have something to say, we will be happy to bring that to you and help you kind of navigate that based upon what their guidance is. But again, Akita Pharmacy, a pharmacy that I believe Mochi owns, but I don't want to speak out of hand. I know that they use them a lot. And they've been halted on their ability to dispense, deliver, or distribute compounded products in Washington state. That's where they operate. And they are, this was as of yesterday, and this is directly from the doh.wa.gov press release on their website. This is the state of Washington Health Department. So moving on, I'm going to move on to the next topic because the next topic is my phone started blowing up this afternoon with messages that people were saying there has been a stay granted in the OFA versus FDA Tirzepatide trial. And I wanted to put that into context. I've obviously reviewed the document that I was able to review. The stay is simply all that does. It doesn't mean that there's going to be no enforcement against compounds. That's 100% not what it means, to get that off the top here. Make sure you hit the subscribe button here if you're watching along on YouTube. Make sure that you hit the subscribe button if you're watching. There's a lot of conflicting information as to whether Mochi owns Akita or not. I'm not 100% sure on whether they own them or not, but I know that they use them a lot for filling their scripts. And yeah, so it'll be interesting to see. But I'm fairly certain that they do actually own Akita Pharmacy, but I could be wrong. But make sure you follow along. Make sure you hit the thumbs up button. So on the OFA FDA thing, there was a stay, but it's really, so what happened when the preliminary injunction was denied by the judge in that case, it basically caused the OFA to basically appeal that decision with the Fifth Circuit Court, like an appeals court, right? And so basically the stay that was granted in a stay that was granted in the trial there in district court in Texas basically relates to putting that case on pause while this appeals process goes through. It doesn't mean that there will be no enforcement by the FDA. It simply means that case pauses while the FDA and the OFA hash it out in appeals court. Does that make sense? So there's still status quo there. There's really been no change other than the trial in district court kind of gets put on pause while this thing gets hashed out in appeals court. And I don't think that this was unexpected. And I think this is mostly a procedural thing, if that makes sense. So yeah, there's a lot of people coming into the comments on YouTube saying Mochi does not own Akita. Just not what I've heard. But yeah, we'll see how that kind of shakes out in the wash. Maybe there's somebody from Mochi who could answer that. We would love to hear from them. I think a lot of people would love to hear from them. And I think this is where people start to get frustrated. I know that with the issue with Usha Pharmacy and Zappy and Slim Down, the silence, I think, was the most frustrating part for people to deal with. And so I have high hopes for this company. I think that they have a very good reputation. I think that they will be forthcoming. I think that they will be forthcoming, and I think that they will have something to say, but we'll be waiting to hear. We'll be waiting to hear. So, yeah. So thank you for joining. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being the best part of what we do here at On the Pen. We will give you updates as they come along. And so stay tuned to onthepen.com, where we'll probably do some updates from the website. I am personally traveling this weekend, so it's going to be hard to kind of keep up. But we will try to update the website. Make sure that you hit follow along if you're on TikTok. Make sure you follow wherever you're watching today. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being the best part of what we do at On the Pen. Couldn't, shouldn't, and wouldn't do it without you. Until next time, we will catch you on the next one.